Okay. All right. As that projector is turning on, which it will because it's all fixed again. All the problems. Okay, so we started talking in Camera Raw last week. We're going to finish with some of the palettes in there, but I also want to work with setting a custom calibration for us to put in there. Like I said, all our color checkers disappeared since Thursday for whatever reason. Somebody knew that we needed it today. There were 3 of them in there. Not that we had a ton, but there were 3 of them in there, but still, there are none in there. So I ran off a couple of prints, hoping we can fake it. We will see, because I was testing it, and it kept telling me that my gray had a color cast, which I know it does because of that printer. So we're going to see if we can still fake it and set it so that you know how to do it. Regardless, we'll walk through those steps to try and show you how to do it and see the difference. But that's going to be our first task today, and then we're going to talk about some of the other tabs in the Camera Raw dialog box, mainly like the presets, the snapshots, and also as we do that color calibration, getting that in there and getting that to work the way we want. So that's going to be our main goal today, and then see if there's any questions with anything, and then kind of give you direction on your assignment and turn you loose to work on that. So that's our plan. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get the software to do this camera profiling, basically. What we're going to do is we're going to use let me get this image up here. We're going to use this 24 color or patch color chart to profile your particular camera to all the images that you take, so that when you bring it into the software, you're seeing it the way you're supposed to see it. So you'll notice that there's a variety of colors on these color checkers. There are several different types out there. There are 2014, they came out with a newer color checker. Apparently they had to adjust the color tones from the last 40 some years of using these color checkers. They had to do an update in 2014. Not that it changed drastically, but there was some updating done to some of the colors. But the color placement is actually very strategic. You always have the brown in the upper left corner, the teal in the right, the black and the white across the bottom, with the grayscale across the bottom, and all the different colors. Because your camera might not photograph certain colors to the extent that it should be displayed after the fact. You might white balance it, but everything else is still off because it's an extreme lighting situation. And even though the white balance says it's correct with a custom white balance, everything else seems wrong. So like your reds are magenta and stuff like that. And what we want to do is we want to create a profile that corrects that so that you can apply it to your images and hopefully lessen the amount of editing that you have to do. So we'll see if we can't get the software to work. But there is a free software that Adobe makes that you can use. I have already downloaded it. The link is actually in chapter 2, and I don't have the page number on me, but the link is within that chapter. You can also simply Google DNG, is it profile editor. If you Google that, the first link that should come up should be Adobe's website, and this is the profile editor that you want. So you can download this on your computer at home. It will download Mac or Windows, either or. Obviously it's recognizing the Mac, so it's going to download the Mac version. But they are still in version 1.0.4, not that they update that often or that it needs to be. But doing this download is not a tough task. I've already downloaded it. You could click proceed to download from here and download it yourself. Otherwise, I actually unzipped the file already and put it on the server for you guys. It's nothing that gets installed. This is just a software that hangs out, so you could put it anywhere on your computer. Oh, I guess I am connected already.
And this is for the calibration?
Yeah. This will give us a profile for your camera. What's really nice about using these profiles is that you can create as many profiles as you need for your camera. If you have multiple cameras, you can create one for each camera. So you can create a profile for direct sunlight, for shade, for studio lighting, for, I don't know, this horrendous lighting that we have in the classroom. You can create it for every type of lighting situation that you typically find yourself in. And then you can just click on that drop down once it's created within Camera Raw. These profiles can be used in Photoshop, in Lightroom. There are a couple other editing softwares across different platforms that you can import these profiles, and then it will work. So it is a huge benefit to have and to create. So I did put on the server, I've already downloaded it, but like I said, you could just Google DNG Profile Editor, download that, and that's exactly what this is. But you can also just grab and drag that file to your desktop, to your hard drive if you just want to take a copy of it, download it already. But it's the Mac version, so know that. And then it's going to open just like a regular software does. It might give you a warning the first time. I've opened it on this computer already, but it might give you a warning the first time saying this has been downloaded from the internet. Do you want to open it? And yes, you can open it. And to start with, this opens. And we can't do much more until we actually take a picture with our camera. But this is all the software is. It's just a dialog box with a few tabs. We are simply going to take a photo in RAW, convert it to a DNG because it can only use a DNG photo. It cannot use a RAW format. So we have to save them as a DNG and then open them here, and then we can complete the calibration. So I want to see if we can pull this off with our printed copies. So what we're going to do is, we can do it in a couple different ways. I have two of these printed off. We can take one in here. You can take one outside. The big thing is to try and custom calibrate as best as possible, or not calibrate, white balance as best as possible. Even if you use some of the preset white balances, we should be okay with it. So if you take it outside, the sun's beating down right now, and you set it to daylight white balance, you should be okay. The problem we're going to have with these, and maybe that's the problem I was having, is that typically these are somewhat of a matte, and there's special inks that are used to get these color checkers printed properly. And this is on a semi-gloss paper, so there is a slight sheen to it, which may cause a little bit of a problem. And I know with some of the inks being replaced, it hasn't been recalibrated. So I don't know if that's the problem I was having or not, but we're going to try it anyway. The big thing is, typically with these color checkers, they're just a hard cardboard, like a mounted cardboard basically. And you have to keep it, especially with this shine on it, you have to try and keep this straight. And you want to try and get the light as even as possible. So you don't want a shadow from, if somebody's holding this for you, you don't want the shadow from their hand across the color checker. You want this to be shadow free and as evenly lit as possible. So if you decide to shoot in here, you want to try and find a spot in here where you're almost directly underneath that light rather than in between two lights. You can try it a couple of different ways to try and get the right spot, but you're just going to have to watch those shadows. And then the other thing to try is to probably exposure bracket so that you can get several different exposures just in case. You don't want to overexpose the whites. You don't want to underexpose those shadow areas so that those two look the same. It's never a bad idea to do a multiple exposure. So you can bracket if you want to, either manually or do your auto bracketing setting on your camera. Take a couple of shots and figure out which one looks best. That's up to you. But evenly lit, properly exposed, that's the most important thing. You can use these middle gray, probably this third patch in. I think the software tells me It's column 3, row 4. That one. That would be a good one to try and use as an exposure. So that's pretty much a middle gray right there. So I don't think you're going to be able to white balance off of that, but it's pretty small. But you can at least get your exposure reading off of that one if nothing else. And you should be pretty close then. But that's what we want to do. So we're going to take these right now. We're going to snap them. We got to make sure everyone's camera is set to RAW and not JPEG, because I made that mistake the very first time I did that. And it doesn't work well. So we need it in RAW because we need all the data. And if you don't know how to set RAW on your camera, today is the day to discover that. And then we're going to snap a couple of shots really quick. I want to... So once you're back and set, what we need to do is we need to convert those images to DNG files. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to do it through Bridge. It's going to be the easiest way, except for Photos is opening. I'm going to use Bridge. Now it's a matter of remembering which is which. Good thing we've got all the raw data to remember. So I'm just going to copy these, or I'm just going to select all of these, and then I'm just going to convert them all to a DNG, and then I'm going to go straight into the software and see if I can't do it without touching anything as far as the raw file and white balance and that kind of stuff. I'm just going to go right there, convert the DNG, try that. If not, I'm going to go back to that file and make adjustments prior. But I'll show you a couple things. So I'm going to copy these off my card. Into a folder. And then I'm going to convert all of these. I mean, you could convert them from your card and then save them somewhere else if you'd rather. That's fine too. I just want to use this in the future, so I'm going to copy it first. All right.
CR2 would be the raw file, right?
That would be the raw file, yep.
And my time is NEF.
Yep, or it might be the NEF. And is yours the ORF? You're the only one with the Sony camera, so as long as you know what your raw file is. So I'm just going to open these in camera raw because I tried this and it wouldn't let me do it. So I'm just going to do a Command R in Bridge or go under File and Open in Camera Raw. And then I have the whole film strip of images that I've created or taken a picture of. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all of these on the side and convert them to a DNG. So I just clicked on one of the thumbnails on the left-hand side in the film strip, and I'm doing a Command A to select all. And then one thing we haven't really talked about yet was saving images from Adobe Camera Raw, which are one of the things that we want to cover today. So I'm going to click Save Images on the lower left corner. And I have this whole options menu to select from. And really when you are saving an image, and what's nice about this is yes, you can open your images in Photoshop, do some other adjustments, and then save it. But if you've done everything that you need to do in Camera Raw, and there's nothing else you have to do, or you just need to create quick previews for a client to see, that kind of stuff, you can just select them, click Save Images, and then save them as whatever file type you want. In our case, we need a DNG. But working top to bottom, you always choose where you want it to go. It defaults in the same location that it's pulling the files from, unless it can't save to that. So If you're pulling it from your camera card and saving it as a DNG, you will probably want to select a different location. So you would just click select folder and then choose exactly where it's going to go. I do want mine on my desktop inside this folder, so I'm going to select that. But you can create folders, whatever you need to do. Then if I want to change the naming, that's where I would do that. For this exercise, I'm not worried about that, but know that that option is there. So you can do whatever combination of name changes that you want. And some of you are in workflow, so you've been thinking about how you want to name your files in the naming structure. After you copy it off your camera card, it'll always show you an example up at the top. But the big thing is the file extension. What type of file? And no, there is really no difference between the lowercase and the uppercase. It really serves no purpose, to be honest. There's no difference between a lowercase DNG file extension and an uppercase. Same for the rest of the options that are there. So it doesn't matter which one you choose, they will both still be a digital negative file. Format is a digital negative. And the rest of this you should not have to touch. I'm just going to leave compatibility as its default, not worry about it. Right now I'm not going to worry about color space, image sizing, that stuff. In a DNG file, I don't have those options anyway. But if I were to be saving this as a JPEG, I would have some of these options available at the bottom that I could choose and change things. But we'll come back to that. So right now, DNG, I'm just going to click Save, and then you will see down at the bottom that it tells you how many files it has left to save, so you always know what time is left. And then it will disappear when it's done. So now let's see if we can pull this off. This is where I start to get nervous. No. If you want to try and create this profile, I would download your images, convert them to DNG, and then we'll open the software. So I'm going to click Done from Camera Raw. I'm good to go there. And I'm going to minimize Bridge. Okay. Anyone have questions up till that point? Open the raw files, convert to DNG. When you get that set, what you're going to do is you're going to open up the DNG profile editor if you haven't already. It will look like this. It calls it an untitled recipe. I like that it calls it a recipe. It just entertains me a little bit. But all these tabs across the top serve different purposes. But the only one we really need is to go to the last tab, which is Chart. So let me do something. If you didn't bring your camera, let me in the raw image samples, I'm just going to grab a couple of these. So if you didn't bring your camera, but you want to see if we can get this profile to work, just grab on the server in our digital editing folder is the raw image samples, and then the first three images, 17, 51, 52, and 58. You can copy those images to your desktop or somewhere if you wanted to try it. But we're going to go to this chart tab. So it shows us the color checker. That's important. And then what we're going to do is we have to open a DNG image, and then we have to adjust a few things and click a button. So I'm going to go under File and Open DNG Image, or Command O. And then I just have to locate where I save those DNG files. Notice how it only lets us choose a DNG file and not our raw files. I'm going to try this one. So then just pick one of them. Try and know which one it is so that if this sets it the way we want it to, you can actually save it as a profile and title it like Full Sun or Shade or Indoor, whatever it is. Now I can't remember the range off the top of my head, but if I remember correctly, your white balance for these images, in order for the color checker to work, has to be within, I believe it's 2800 and 5500. It's there's a certain range that those white balances have to be within, and we can tweak it if our white balance doesn't fall within there. What's interesting is, because it's a raw file, you'll see once you open that DNG file that it actually tells you what the white balance is to know if you're in the range or not, for it to accurately read it. So my image is rotated, but that really doesn't make a difference, because what we have to do is get these 4 color circles matched up with the 4 corners. So even though mine's rotated, that's okay. I'm going to move my white onto the white square, my black, and it needs to be in the middle of that square. This teal in the middle, this brown. So from the DNG profile editor, I just went File and Open DNG file. Did that work once you reconnected to the server? You don't have the color circles? Are you in that last tab? Maybe that's why. Usually that's the... There we go. We got it. So now the test to see if this actually works. We're going to leave, there's 2 options. There's really only 2 things to look at. Number 3 says select which color table or tables you wish to create. Always just leave it at both. What that is it relates to a monitor profile, so that if you switch the color within your monitor, it still calibrates appropriately. So we're not going to worry about that. That's a totally different discussion. Just leave it set to both. There's really no reason to select one or the other. But the button we have to push is Create Color Table, and we're going to cross our fingers. It's that one gray. God, I was hoping that we could bypass it. Let me try a different one. It's that gray. So it actually tells us which one's the issue. I don't know if anyone's getting past that point, but I bet everyone's getting the same error. Because we printed it off the printer and it's not the true color card. I'm going to try a different image, but I've tried this with about 6 different images this morning, hoping to pull that off. Let me open another one. I don't want that one, I want this one. There's too much of a color cast on our printer to get it to... Dang, dang, dang. 4#3, it's that gray. It doesn't like that gray. Man. Okay, so here's what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to be able to click the Create Color table, and then bam, it's there. And then it asks us to save it, and we're done. That's really all it is. So what we're supposed to be able to do is see in here, it actually shows you how it's adjusting each one of those colors, and then it will save the profile and adjust your camera accordingly. Let me show you this. Knowing this was an issue this morning, I dug up one of my favorite little clips here. Except for it's not showing you guys. Where is it? Oh, I am looking at the wrong one. Okay, so this is walking through. Now he's using Lightroom, know that, but that doesn't matter for this portion of it. He has a color checker that he's going to use, and then he's going to, let me just kind of skip to, he's photographing underneath a street light. And so these colors right here, are the colors on our color checker, like this, I can't remember which one. I believe this is supposed to be the red, or this purple's the red. This is one of the browns. So everything is so far off underneath this light, even though it's white balanced properly, according to the gray card. So he's just walking through the color calibration, and let me get to the part where he actually does the calibration. Let's see. Here we go. Show you this part.
Color dots over the corresponding colors on the image, and I would click Create Color Table. But in this case, because the white balance is so far off, it gives me an error message instead. It says unable to check the white balance using the gray patches and to line these dots up and try again. Well, I've already done that, and it doesn't like it. So what I have to do is I have to eyeball the color and get it closer before it'll create a camera profile for me. And so what I went ahead and did was I went to the color matrices table here, and the white balance calibration allows you to calibrate the white balance outside of the normal range for Adobe Camera Raw. And we have to do that here in this case because I'm at 2000 Kelvin, which is the minimum limit, and it's still not quite right. We have to get it within 2000 to 50,000, which I believe is the maximum, before it'll allow to generate a custom chart. So I've already done that. Let's just go ahead and punch those numbers back in, and you can see the colors changing as we go, and it's getting better. And in fact, you can see up here it went from 2000 Kelvin with a positive 3 tint to 2100 Kelvin with a positive 14 tint by just changing this. And that's within the limits now. It knows that's a valid white point, and I can go over to the chart and click Create Color Table, and it would be good to go. But I'm going to go ahead and tweak it some more. I want to get this a little bit better before I do that, because I can. I know I can. And I've already done these, so let me go ahead and just punch the rest of these in. We got positive 53, positive 23, 56. And this is going to vary per lighting, per camera, per lens even. I mean, some lenses are going to render color differently than others. Obviously, each camera body is going to have a different sensor, and even the same camera with a different camera with the same model is going to have a different response. So you may have to do this for every single camera body you have under this type of lighting. And under slightly different lighting, it's going to vary. So you'll have to do this each time. But fortunately, it only takes a minute to tweak this and eyeball it to close as you can, and then let the chart generate. And then that's it. Once you have the chart generated, you can use it permanently. So let's go ahead and try this again. Create color table, and it says color table built successfully. And you can see just then the color shifted to
That's
the
what we're
correct
supposed to
color
have.
based on these squares here. It knows what these values should be, and it senses the adjustment it needs to make, and it makes it. As you can see over here, it's tweaked all of these adjustments by this is the before and after, and you can see all those adjustments are pretty significant. And now what I would do is I would just export the profile. In this case, it's a Nikon D300 profile. I would export that profile so I can use it in Camera Raw or within Lightroom, and I would need to either restart Photoshop or Lightroom to use it, or in this case I've already exported it earlier and restarted, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you. And you can see I originally imported this in Adobe Camera Raw 4.4, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change that to what I call the Emperor's Street Lamp Perfect Match profile here, and that doesn't look very good either. But once I get my white dropper out here, I set the white point again, and look at that. That is amazing. The difference from here to here. That's what the custom camera profile generated, and look at how different that is. That's almost perfect. That's, I would say, 90 or even 95% perfect. I wouldn't go and try to shoot product photography under it, but that's certainly good enough to do portraits or just about anything else. I mean, you would be hard off to find a bad lighting in this situation now. And it's really simple. I mean, I can use this profile from now on under those lighting conditions, and you can just see this is, for comparison's sake, this is the same target under direct sunlight with a full sun profile that I made to just to compare. I mean, look, that's under a street light, and this is in full sun, and that's almost perfect. Anyways, you can get the software, the Adobe Profile Editor. Just search on my blog.
So he's just walking through where to find the software that we're using. So you can see the difference. I don't know if he was, as he was moving the sliders, if you saw the difference at all, but you could see the color shifting. And he obviously played with it before to get the colors the way he wanted, or set the way he wanted, so that he could just type in the numbers and then click the profile. But that's what we should be getting right here. We should be getting all 24 colors, how it's being shifted, showing the before after, and then our pinpoints on our color table. And then we can go and we can export the profile, and it recognizes your camera based on the DNG file. And then we would export it, and then it would allow us to save it. Now, it's still gonna let me try and save it, but obviously I've created nothing, so I have nothing to really save. But know that under File, and then at the bottom is the export. Then what it will do is it automatically saves it. You'll see right here, it automatically saves it buried inside the Adobe, the library on your computer. So whether it's a Mac or a PC, it's buried inside the application itself, underneath the libraries. There's a section for Adobe, there's a Camera Raw section, and then there's one where it automatically saves the camera profiles. So this will pull it into Lightroom, this will pull it into Photoshop. So you don't have to do anything with it aside from save it. Now, if you're going between computers, yes, you would want to know where that folder is, and you can simply copy that file, and then you can put it into the Camera Raw profile folder on the computer that you're working on. So there is a way to move it back and forth. It's obviously just a little bit of work, but you can save it in multiple places. By default, it goes to that camera profile, which is perfect for using it in the software. Then here's what happens. So unfortunately, that color cast was just enough that it's not going to do it for us. Hopefully by tomorrow I'll figure out where those cards are. I'm just going to quit this for now. And I'm going to go into, I'm just going to open one of these images just to have something to work with here. I'm going to go into Camera Raw to show you exactly where you pull that profile from. So if we were able to save that as a profile that we were going to use, once we save that, it goes into, across all these tabs here, there's one that looks like a camera. And that camera calibration tab is the third from the right. And then there's a drop down in here. We have the process. That's kind of a different conversation. Usually you just use the current calibration process. And if you have an older file and it used an older form of calibration, because every image goes through some type of calibration when you open the raw file in a raw editor, whether it's Lightroom or Photoshop. It has to go through some type of calibration. It's always adjusted. It has to tie the data. That's the big thing. The data from the camera has to be tied to the image itself, because it always keeps that data separate. Remember, we have that XMP file, and even if you don't make any adjustments, the data always lives separately within that file. So that calibration brings it all together. So this camera profile is where we would select that. So if I were to, let's just say this was the one I saved, it would show up in this list, and I can select it, and then it adjusts my image based on that profile. Did I just really messed up the profile? Let's try neutral. So it would allow us to select the ones we created specifically for our camera. So that's where it would be. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. It is really nice to have those calibrations in those situations. And I think that video where he created it underneath that street light, that's a really good example of how a really bad lighting situation can actually be fixed and a usable situation. So once he created that profile, it's kind of like snapping your gray card picture and doing your custom white balance. You can snap one of those cards, in any situation, and then all you have to do is do the quick clicks, create the profile, and then every image underneath that street light or every image underneath the horrendous fluorescent lighting that you're using, they will all be calibrated and they will all match. The colors will be tweaked and adjusted and require you to do a lot less work after the fact. So it goes one beyond just a white balance. Does that make sense? It's not hard to do. It's good to do. Okay. So now from last week, before we move forward into some new things, did anyone have any questions with what we've already done working within Camera Raw? Whether it was a tab, maybe using it, problems with it, problems getting a file to open. Some people have that. No. Okay. All right. So trying to remember where I was working within here. We talked about the basic, the tone curve, and then we went into the HSL slider. We didn't really get into the details, but I don't know that there's a whole lot to talk about there because you have your sharpening and your noise reduction within that tab. That's going to be the third tab over from the left. Sharpening is automatically applied on every image, but you can change that if need be. And then you can also do the noise reduction if you want to. The two tabs I really want to talk about, because there's more to go into each one, like there is a lens correction, chromatic aberration, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Maybe I'll switch it up a little bit. Do you know what chromatic aberration is?
Is it when like the pinks and greens show?
Yeah, you get the pink and green lines. And I know this lens is known for it, so let me see if I can't. Even with the printed image. No, the print head is just off, which makes that harder. Let me see if I can't get... Oh, please, server, take your time. Let's see. See if I can't find it on this one. I know one of these has it. This would be on the edges. Where you see edges of contrast, you'll often see an edge of pink or green lines. And that really just has to do with the lens itself. This one doesn't really have it. I know one of these does. You'll really see it in those contrasting areas. Here's a little bit. It might be hard to see up on your screen. It's kind of hard to see. But there's a little edge right here where there's just a little bit of a blue or a green tint to it. And that's just a shifting in the lens. And sometimes it actually does have a lot to do with the quality of a lens. I find if I use a lens that has a variable aperture rather than a fixed aperture, I see more of that as an issue than with other lenses. But know that you can correct that, and it is all under the lens correction tab. It's right in the middle. And you can check a box that says to remove that, and it will automatically attempt to remove that. I don't know if you can, it's so subtle on there, it's hard to see turning it on and off. But there is automatic settings for it, and there are manual settings for it. It falls under the defringe. I wish they would title it the same to make your life easier, but, you know, that'd be asking a lot. So there are 2 tabs within lens correction, one being profile, one being manual. Under the manual is where you can really adjust that. It usually falls in the purple and green is what you see, and then you're basically shifting and adding a color in to remove that fringe. That happens more often than not in a lot of images. So you can try just checking that box on, see if it gets rid of it. In extreme situations, go to the manual tab, and then what you're doing is you're sliding. Maybe I can create it. It's not good. I want to see if I can actually create it, even though it's not there. It's not going to let me. I was hoping for it. So basically you're adjusting the saturation of the purple that you're seeing on those edges, or the green, and then you're adjusting the range of color tones, because purple falls on many ends of the scale, and so does green. Green can appear more yellow, it can appear more on the blue side, and then the purple might be a little bit more blue or red. So you're just adjusting the range to try and eliminate that, is what you're doing. But that's what's going to fall under the lens correction. That's probably the biggest thing you'll use. The other thing that I would use it for is a distortion. So if your lens, if you shot with a little bit more of a wide angle, you were doing like an architecture, some type of architecture where the columns needed to be straight, or the edges of a building, things like that, or even just a commercial product where you have a cereal box and the edge needs to be straight, you can adjust the distortion here. And if your camera does vignetting without you wanting it to, this is where you would remove it, because some cameras will. When you shoot wide open, you get the vignette, which is really the edges of the lens, and then you can remove it by either adding white, here, if I zoom out here, by either adding white into it to remove it, or darkening it. And yes, you can use this as an effect if you really want to, but there's a different spot for that. And we talked about that last week. We talked about the post-crop vignetting a little bit. Remember that? Or am I imagining that we talked about it? Between workflow and this class, there are some overlap. It's just different software. So I want to make sure. But there is post-crop vignetting so that you can actually add the vignette, and if you crop your image, it will reapply the vignette. It's not like you're cropping it out. That's the one to use. But here are the 2 to focus on. The last 2 tabs, snapshots and presets. I love these. I love them dearly. Snapshots and presets. Snapshots are like what you guys read in chapter 1. So the histogram, or not the histogram, sorry, the history palette will allow you to take snapshots. And some of you noted that in your chapter summaries, that you didn't know you could take snapshots using the history palette to go back to whatever state in history. Now we can do the same thing in Camera Raw, which is awesome. Not only that, not just a state in history, but rather than saving an image with a color adjustment, saving one with a cool color tone applied to it, saving one in black and white, or 4 versions of a black and white image that you want to show somebody, you can save it as a snapshot in the raw file and then just click back and forth. And it basically takes a snapshot of all your settings across the board, or whatever you choose to take, which you'll see in a second here. And then it will just reapply those settings. So I love using snapshots in that case. So for example, I like taking a snapshot of my beginning point. It's a nice quick way to return to the default, the Camera Raw default, before you do anything. And at the bottom of that snapshot window looks like a new layer icon, teeny tiny one, and it asks a new snapshot. So I always call it before, and I hit OK. It creates that snapshot. Now I can go in and do whatever it is I want to do. So if I want to start adjusting exposure, highlights, work with the color a little bit, tonal adjustments, whatever it is that makes you happy and your image look good. There we go. And then maybe this is my color corrected one. So I'm just playing with sliders so you can see what this will do. I can add another one, and this one I'll do color adjusted maybe. Now let's say I want to do a split toning. So I want to see if I can't get this the way I want. Do a split tone with the green. Just create an overall split tone. Split toning is just, if you don't know what it is, you can select two colors and it overlays it on top of your image, whether it's color or black and white. And then I can adjust the balance in between there of which color it's using over the other. Okay, so let's say that's another one. Split tone, if I can spell. And then I'm just going to make one black and white. Let's do that. Okay, so I've created 4 different snapshots that now I can just switch. So I can always click, even if I close this and open it back up, unlike the history palette in Photoshop, it loses those snapshots. It doesn't save those with the file. It only saves them until you close the image. So that's one downfall. But in RAW, it saves it. So now I can go back, here's the before, here's the split tone, here's the color adjusted, here's the black and white. I can just keep going back and forth and they are all there. It's like having 4 images in one. I kind of like it. Now what I need it to do is I need it to allow me to select all of these and then save them out as individual files so I don't have to one by one save each of them. If it could do that, that would be spectacular.
It can't do that.
Not that I have ever been able to find. I did some searching to see if maybe it was added, and I haven't seen that it was. So that's how you would use snapshots. Now you're going to use this as part of your assignment, so make sure you know how to use snapshots. You're going to take a before picture before you do any adjustments with your images for next week, and then you're going to take the after snapshot when it's done, so that I can do a comparison and look at adjustments and stuff like that. So then there's presets. Now, how many of you have used a preset before? Maybe. Okay, so what does a preset do? We actually did it the first week, but it was in a very different way than what we're doing here.
Isn't it kind of just like a filter, like you already made, like, kind of designed like an edit that you like for a photo and you can apply it to another photo?
Yes, that's exactly it. So if you have certain edits that you like or that you've used in the past and you want to use them again, you can save that as a preset. It's like, almost like saving your workspaces. That was a preset, so that you can click a button and your workspace goes back to the way it was. This is the same thing, only it's color adjustments. It's adjusting anything and everything that's in here. So if I like this black and white adjustment and I think I'm going to use it again, I can create, and just like in the snapshot panel, there's a little icon at the bottom that looks like a new layer, but this one's for a preset, so it comes up a little bit different because it lets me choose what settings I want to include in this preset and which ones I don't. So if I want to call this black and white 1, maybe I want a couple different ones, I can choose what I want. There are Like if I don't want to worry about vignettes or haze, maybe I applied that, but I don't want that to carry forth to other images. I mean, if you've only done adjustments that you know you want to apply to all, you don't have to worry, just leave them all checked and you're fine. But I'm just going to leave this to this extent here. And then I'm going to click OK, and it creates that preset. So here's what's cool. I can close this image. Done. And then a week later, I take another set of pictures. I open them in Camera Raw. Now, if I want to use black and white on that image, I just go to my presets tab and it keeps the list here. And I click on it and then it applies it. Now, yes, I might have to tweak it a little bit per image, but all the black and white settings that I set here are identical to what I did in the other one. If I find that maybe I need to adjust it a bit and I want a couple different ones, I don't think I have a lot in here. So maybe this one I find to be a better adjustment. I could save this as another one. And you know what? If you're really good at making presets, you can make money off of them. People buy Camera Raw presets. There are some that you can get for free. They're not always the greatest. I've tried a ton of them. You might get one out of the set of 20 that you get for free that works, but hey. So now I have 2 different black and white presets that I can try on any image that I want and see if it works. And that will reside on this computer. Let's see if I can. Now, if I load, let me try something. There we go. I can dig them up and move them between computers, but I have to do a little bit of digging. Like I said, it's buried in that application support folder with Camera Raw, but there's a settings. That's where your presets live. So you can copy them, and if you ever want to, just let me know, we'll find them. But otherwise, it's on that particular computer. But presets are wonderful, and let me just kind of show you what happens. Camera presets. Let's see if on one, they do. On One is a software we have. We use it in advanced digital editing, but they offered a set of Camera Raw presets for free. I have them though, so I don't want to download them again. Why does my password never work the first time? Hello. Oh, maybe I deleted it. Just trying to see if I could just get them without having to fill out the information. But they give you a set, and basically it's like one XMP file, and it tells you how to it walks you through exactly what to do, so that it installs it, and then in Camera Raw it shows up in this gigantic preset list. And then you can just simply click. It's like a one-click action in Photoshop, essentially, is what it comes down to. So presets are very, very powerful, and I recommend trying to save them. Create your own. If your camera likes to shift colors in a certain way, and maybe that calibration doesn't work, or it works, but you still find you have to shift colors a certain way, or there's always a contrast adjustment you have to do. I know I have to do that with my camera, that even though I set it a certain way and get it set within the camera, I'm always doing some type of contrast adjustment, and then maybe a certain sharpening setting or a noise reduction with a certain ISO level. If you get that set, save that, because why do it again? If you don't have to, why not get 90, 95% of the way there, if not 100%, with the click of a button, and then just tweak it a little bit? why bother going through and adjust 5 different sliders every single time you open up a set of images? That's what the preset's going to do. It's going to negate the need for all those adjustments because you're saving it. So I know with a certain camera that I use that I have to sharpen a little bit more in order to get the image the way I want. I can simply save a preset of just the sharpening if I want to, and then apply that to every single image. I can only check the sharpening. Sharpening for the 60D. And then I save it, and it will apply it once I click on it on every image. So it's a really, really, really good idea, and it's going to speed up your workflow, I promise.
Is it weird that I feel like I'm kind of cheating when I do that? I don't know why.
I do too.
It's like it's too easy. Like I want it and make it hard.
Exactly. Like you're losing control because you're letting, because at one time you had the control and then you saved the control you had.
That it just, like every.
I do it too.
You push these and I love it and I know it's great, but I'm scared to do it.
I know, especially when it's not your own. I think it's different when you're the one creating the presets
Yeah,
versus you buy or download a free one of someone else's, because then you feel like you're cheating. Like, I should be editing more. I shouldn't be clicking a button and I'm done. No, I completely understand that. It is totally different when it's your own, because you're like, whew, that didn't take me an hour. That only took me 10 minutes. So, but someone else's, I get. That makes sense. Okay, there's one other thing that I want to show you, and that is doing localized adjustments. This is spectacular. You can use the adjustment brush to do all the adjustments that we've been talking about, like all the basic adjustments, some of the other color adjustments. You can do that in here, but then you can localize it to maybe just a skin tone or a background or one specific color or part of an image. And it works really, really well. Do I have the card in? I think I have the opposite card in right now. Let me switch cards in the computer because, yes. Where is it? I don't need this anymore. I'm gonna stick a different card in here really quick because I have all the images from our Einstein project. And that will give me what I want. Where's my... There we go. Let's pick... I'm just going to use this. See what this does. Close. Close enough. Okay, so I'm just going to do a basic adjustment here, and then I'm going to show you a couple of things. All right. So let's say I'm looking at an image and I want to make it a little bit more even with this background, like it almost like a vignette from the edge of, it's a box of Skittles, container of Skittles underneath. So I want this edge to be a little bit lighter here and maybe just a little bit darker over here to draw more attention to just the bubbles. So with my sliders here, I'm adjusting the whole thing. It's not doing what I want. I can use this adjustment brush here, or the quick key is a K. That one's not easy to remember, but the quick key for the adjustment brush is K. And when I click that, my panel over here looks somewhat the same, but it changes. I still have temperature and exposure and all that kind of stuff, but I also have sharpness, noise reduction. I have this little color thing that I'm going to come back to. And then some of the options at the bottom have to do with the color. And then I have all these plus and minus signs here. And I get a brush. And I get this new Add Erase tab at the top. So the adjustment brush lets us choose where we want to, let's say I want to increase the exposure, but only part of the image. This is great if you have maybe an image where it's part sun, part shade, and you adjust the sun, but then the shaded part is still a little too dark. So you want to increase the exposure, but just that part. You can paint in exactly what you want. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to adjust my exposure. Usually it's a guessing game at first, and then we just adjust it to fix it. My brush sizes, you need to know your quick keys for that. Do you know how to increase and decrease the brush size, Kristen?
The bracket bar.
The brackets. The left and right brackets will increase and decrease the brush size. Now, how about the overall feathering? There is a slider at the bottom, but that's cheating. The feathering, so the inside, like right now, the inside circle is my actual brush size. The outside circle is how far out it's going to feather to. This is true in Photoshop, even though you only see one circle in Photoshop. I wish it showed like this.
The arrows. What do you do for it?
Ah, it's a shift and then your right and left bracket key. That's a very good quick key to know, because your right and left bracket will increase and decrease brush size. Adding shift to it will change the overall feathering. And I just realized I said it backwards. The outside circle is your brush size. The feathering amount is that inside circle. So now I can simply brush an exposure adjustment to just the areas that I want to. Maybe I want to do this whole part over here. And I can go back and make adjustments now. I see a little pin that shows up, and that pin is showing me my starting point of where I started to brush. And then anything I've brushed within there, I can increase. Let me take some of the white area down here. There we go. So now I've made an adjustment just to that area. And what it does is it automatically, those little radio buttons at the top automatically go from new to add. So as I brush, it continues to add using the same settings to the current mask that I've created here. And I think if you can show and hide your mask if you want to. There's a little checkbox at the bottom. So you can see where you've brushed and where you haven't.
So when you drag the pin, does it always stick with all of the spots that you selected?
Mm-hmm. So if I drag it, it moves that entire mask. Which it's nice to be able to move that. Most of the time you don't. So if I wanted to, so right now I'm increasing the exposure, but over on this side I actually want to decrease it a little bit. But if I were to just change the exposure, it's using my current pin, the one that's highlighted in red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the new, and you'll see this one changes to white instead of red, meaning I have no pins selected. So I'm going to go to new. Now I'm going to maybe decrease my exposure here. Shadows, whites, blacks. And then I'm going to just start brushing over on this side, which is probably going to be too much, but that's okay. Get the point. And then I can tweak that one. So now I have another pin here. I'm showing two. And I can select back and forth between them. This is the best part. In this brush, if I come back days later and I'm like, that's just too bright, I can go into the adjustment brush, click that pin, it's still there. And I can make an adjustment even after the fact. And then I can go back to this pin and say, nope, that one does need to be a bit darker yet. Or maybe I want to desaturate. The only thing that makes me sad is the adjustment brush only has saturation. It doesn't have the vibrance slider in it. That drives me nuts. I want, what happens if I want that? I can't do it. I mean, I kind of get why it's not there, but it still makes me mad. And then I can do sharpness if I want to. Let's say I want the bubbles to be a little bit sharper. I can increase the sharpness. And if you double click any slider, it resets it back to 0.
Double click where?
Just the slide, that little slider triangle, it'll reset it back to 0. I think I can click anywhere. Nope, it has to be that triangle. So I can sharpen just those parts, or just those bubbles if I wanted to. And now I have sharpness, increased sharpness here. I could really go over the top if I wanted to. So that's what the adjustment brush would do. It's just a localized adjustment. You'll see this if you're in digital workflow or if you've taken it already. That is familiar to you because we have very similar settings and abilities in Lightroom as we do with the adjustment brush here. Now, if you decide you don't like one of these pins, maybe I add another pin, I increase the exposure, and I'm like, oh no, that's horrible. Why on earth did I think that that was a good idea? At any time, I can actually click the erase one and maybe erase just certain parts. Or I click the pin. Oops. Nope. I want to erase. I want to go back. I can click the pin and just hit the delete key and it takes it away. So it's as simple as that. By clicking delete, you can clear all of them and start from scratch with the clear all button at the bottom. Not that I want to, but it's down there.
Now, how would you get from this to like Snapshot?
So then when you're done, you just get out of that tool. So I would go back to like the zoom or the hand tool. And now we're out of the adjustment brush and we have our tabs back. And then you can go over to Snapshot and add it. Oops. As I hit something. Okay. Making sure I'm not losing my mind here. There we go. Don't confuse the adjustment brush with the other brush looking icon. That's a spot healing brush. It's another good one to know. They're not next to each other, probably for that reason. But the adjustment brush is the brush by itself. The one with little spots on it is, I said spot healing, sorry, the spot removal. So the spot removal brush acts like the healing brush in Photoshop. So if I have an area of my image that I zoomed in way too far, where I want to get rid of certain things, I can simply draw on a part of an image and then it samples another part. So unlike Photoshop where it does a lot of that automatically unless you're using the clone stamp, the spot removal, the red is where you painted, the green is where it's sampling. So I can sample an area and then it blends the two together and then I can just keep healing. And if you don't like where it samples, now this has never worked for me. Press, oh, because I'm pushing the wrong one. No wonder why.
Drag this down.
If you don't like because it auto samples, granted yes you can drag it and sample a different spot, but if you don't like where it's sampling and you just want it to auto, it's called auto patch. You push the backslash key, so the question mark key on your keyboard, and it will find a new spot to resample. And you just keep hitting that until you find something you like. I just move it to a spot because I think that's quicker, but know that you can auto select. It does say right here too. It says right here, press backslash to auto patch a selected spot. And then it'll pick a different spot for you till you're happy, and then you can just click away until all your spots are gone. If you want to paint, you can paint. It might smudge a little bit, but there's some work that some adjusting that you can do after the fact. It's not too bad. Sometimes I like to do this in pieces. So you can do a lot of the basic spot healing stuff that you would do in Photoshop. You can do that right here. See if it does what I want it to. That's not bad. If you hate the overlays, because I know that gets annoying after a while because you just want to see is it blending the way I want it to, there's a show overlay button at the bottom. on the right-hand side that you can uncheck so that you can see what it's doing and make adjustments there. And if you don't like the healing, the clone option is there too. You just got to click the drop down. So it defaults to heal, which is probably what you use a lot of the time, but then you can choose cloning, which would obviously be an exact clone rather than a blending and healing of the spot. And then obviously you have the opacity, feather, size, all that kind of stuff. So you have all those options in there. This is a bonus that I'll show you, but know that I can see where you would use this. I don't use it probably as much as I should. There's a visualizing spots checkbox at the bottom. This is awesome if you have dust on your sensor and it's on every picture. It's easier to find the spots. If you click visualize spots and then you drag this slider, it will show you where those spots are. So if I clear all of these here. So all these spots down at the bottom here that I'm trying to remove, but sometimes are a little bit harder to see, especially depending on the colors. But I know I want them gone, and I know they're in every picture, let's just say. I can now just brush and see where that is, and I can go back and adjust afterwards too. So that's kind of cool. And now I can see I got a lot of those spots gone. And I'm not distracted by anything else. I love that visualize spots. I don't use it as much as I should. I'm going to admit that. But it is there. Okay, how am I doing on time? Right. I want to show you one thing in Adjustment Brush, and that's the last thing I have to show you. This is fun. I love using this. I need a different image for this though. Do I have? Maybe I'll use this one. Not exactly what I want. No, that really is not what I want. I need something else. Okay, you can do hand tinting in Camera Raw, which is so fun. I want to, that would be where you have a black and white photo and then you color it. It's fun to do. Let me grab, something that was a book file from last semester. Fall 16. It's this one. Yes, that's the one. Okay, I'm just gonna grab this file and show it to you. Okay. Here's a file. Let's say I want to hand color this in. And this is fun. Except for when that drives me nuts. There we go. So I'm going to change this image to black and white. I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do to make this look good. Let's say I spent all sorts of time doing what I needed to do and it looks great. But it's the hand tinting. This is what's fun. So I'm going to go into the adjustment brush. Now that I have a black and white image, I've done whatever it is I need to do to make it look good. And I want to color, let's just say, the flowers. You have a color option here towards the bottom. Right now it's crossed out because I have no color selected. But I can select a color. Let's say I want to make these pink. I can select a color, saturation, whatever it may be. Click OK to select my color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on Auto Mask, the little checkbox at the bottom. Because what Auto Mask is going to do is it's going to recognize edges of contrast and only color within those areas. So let me show you what it does. With it off, If I can zoom in here. Okay, now my brush size got tiny. Okay, so with it off, when I brush, I'm simply, wow, that's definitely not gonna work.
How do you flip the phone?
You go to the color at the bottom and you click the color box and it brings up your color picker so that you can choose whatever it is you want and then hit OK. And then with that brush, now I'm just painting in the color. So without auto mask turned on, it's just painting like I would normally paint. Not a big deal. But if I want it to be very specific to like petals on a flower, stuff like that, if I click the auto mask button, it's going to recognize those areas and it's not going to go outside of it. It does a really good job. Basically, whatever the tiny little hashtag or the little plus sign in the middle crosses over is where it paints and recognizes the edges. So if I don't want it to spill over onto my background, with the auto mask, it's not painting on the background. Unlike with it unchecked, where it would just be doing exactly what happened over here, it's not painting the background. And it's not perfect. You might have to go back and fine tune a little bit because it doesn't catch every edge, but it does a really good job. Now I can switch maybe to like a green if I wanted to and paint in, if I can find a actual leaf here. No, it's probably not going to work well right here. No, not at all. Oops, I forgot to click new. Go back. Give me my red. I forgot to click new. The new button and then paint a new spot. And I just did not change the color. Alright, there we go. So now I can paint a variety of different colors if I want to. Of course, I picked an image with white flowers. I should have picked one that had color to begin with. It works better. But now I can just paint parts of an image. I can select a skin tone if I want to. Click new. Go into a skin tone. Let's see if that works. Hand paint in the skin tone. And really just create an old school hand painted image. So it's kind of a cool effect. And the fact that you can do this in Camera Raw creates that non-destructive edit, which typically you would have to do in Photoshop in order to get, pretend I'm actually taking my time on this and that it looks good. You can get that hand-painted effect from a black and white image. So it is kind of neat.
Yeah, see, I kind of love the snapshots now.
Snapshots are fantastic. I really do love snapshots. One thing that bothers me is I can't get the darkness of a color that I want. Like if I want a really dark brown, I can't necessarily get that from here.
Once you have the pin, you adjust it like an adjustment with the sliders. So you have to pick something close, and then once you paint over top of it, you look at the shadow.
Oh, you're talking with these shadows. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That would make more sense doing it that way. So I can color in.
That was really easy too.
Bad her hair is. Yeah, it is. I love the auto mask for that. But yeah, let's make this darker. Here we go. So yeah, now I can do another one. Do like the lips if I wanted to. Change the color. There we go. So I have a half hand-painted image, but you get the idea. So create a black and white, go into the adjustment brush, choose that color option, and then if you want the edges detected, make sure you click the auto mask button. That's the goal. So that's the last thing that I wanted to show you here. I'm going to cancel this because it's kind of a hot mess. This would have been the image that I should have used. That one would have worked better. That's okay. So with that, that's a lot of stuff within Camera Raw. That's a lot of things to talk about. A lot of things over the last 2 weeks that we have discussed. And now some of you have finished your Chapter 2 review already, which is great. If not, you just want to make sure by next week that you finish your Chapter 2 summary. I went through and I graded all the stuff from Chapter 1, that assignment, and the summaries, and I made comments where necessary. So read through those comments, especially just making sure that you're using the chapter summary guide in class materials, because there probably were a small handful of people that I just made notes on doing the chapter summaries and what's included. So use the chapter summary rubric to make sure that you include everything so you can get the full 10 points. Other than that, you have the Chapter 2 assignment to work on for next week. I put all the steps in there. I'm hoping everything makes sense for you. But basically, you're going to choose 4 raw images, as I hold up 3 fingers, 4 raw images of your own that you want to use. The biggest thing is when you submit this or transfer it between computers is that you are including the XMP file that will be created with your raw file. So those 2 files will exist in whatever folder it is that you're working within. So make sure that you copy those files and don't change the file name after you edit, because the XMP file links to the original file name. So change your file names if you're going to before you edit anything. Otherwise it won't link properly and you'll have issues. So don't forget to include that. There is one screenshot that you have to include for this one. But the first one, you're going to choose an image. You're going to take a snapshot, label it before. You're going to do a tone curve. Now adjust anything and everything else to make the image look good, but each of these has to include that item that's being requested. So if you have to adjust a bunch of things in the basic panel, a chromatic abrasion, a lens, whatever, distortion, I don't care, but make sure somewhere in that edit is a tone curve adjustment. Do what you need to do. When you're done, you save an after snapshot and you're going to label it tone curve. So I tell you what to label everything, so just read through those directions. Second one, same thing, a before after, but this one you're going to make sure you do adjustments within the hue, saturation, and luminance tab for that particular image. The third image is that hand tinting that I was just showing you. So you're going to change it, you're going to do a before shot, you're going to change it to black and white, and then you're going to go to the adjustment brush and do the hand tinting. And I put a note, don't forget to hit the new button for every color. You'll learn fast if that happens. And then when you're done, a hand tint snapshot. This last one, you will create a preset. So you will take a snapshot, label it before, do whatever color, tone adjustment, sharpness, that kind of stuff. You're going to take a second snapshot, label it color, and then you're going to create a preset of those things. So you're going to go to the preset tab, save it, label it basic color adjustment. Then you're going to create a black and white. Do not use the saturation slider. Use the actual HSL checkbox that says black and white, grayscale, and then it will let you adjust 8 sliders. Then you're going to label a preset called black and white and create a snapshot. And then last, you are going to create a vignette. I would use the post-crop vignette. That's going to be the best one because you're going to make a preset of it. So you're going to add a vignette, save a snapshot, create the preset of the same thing, but only include the post-crop vignette. So you're going to uncheck everything else, check the vignette, and that's the one you save. And then all I want you to do is I want you to take a snapshot of that preset panel. So just that right-hand side panel that with all the presets that you've created in there. So just a snapshot of this showing that you've created them. And when you're done, you will submit the 4 images with the XMP files and the snapshot. Does that make sense?